Hey, what's going on, everybody? Let me ask you a question. If you started a new job tomorrow, what would your plan be for the first 30 days? If you're drawing a blank, don't worry, you're not alone, but you're also in serious trouble. I'm going to share the exact framework that I've developed after helping other professionals transform from passive employees to respected leaders. And look, this isn't just about working harder than everybody else. It's about working smarter, especially in those crucial first weeks when everyone is forming their opinion about you. What if I told you that the first thing most people do in a new job is exactly what holds them back forever? You get that new position. Walk in day one, and what happens? Your manager shows you to your desk, introduces you to a few people and coworkers, and says those fateful words. Take some time to learn the ropes. And just like that, you've fallen into what I like to call the passive career death trap. Here's typically what I see happen next, from experience, from seeing other people, and from learning from some folks too. You spend the first 2 weeks quietly observing, completing whatever small tasks come your way, and waiting for someone else to tell you what your real job is going to be. You think you're being respectful and diligent, right? You assume your manager will eventually reveal this grand plan for your development. But here's the brutal truth. They probably won't. I actually recently had a conversation with a mentee of mine who landed a great new position. He was super excited about the role, but immediately worried about what he was going to be doing during his first few weeks while he learned the ropes. His mindset was entirely passive, waiting for direction, hoping for assignments, planning to absorb information without making waves. Full stop. This is the trap, but also your opportunity to do something about it. What's fascinating is how dramatically this mindset clashes with what managers and leaders are actually looking for. Research from different leadership studies show that managers form their most lasting impressions of new team members within the first 30 days. And these impressions aren't based on how well you completed your assigned task. They're based on things like your initiative, problem-solving abilities, and whether or not you can think beyond the immediate job description. I'll link some specific study from Leadership IQ that actually shares insights on how 46% of new hires fail in their first 18 months. Spoiler alert, about only 11% of the failures were based on lack of technical skills. Those first 30 days create a performance impression that's incredibly difficult to change later. It's like setting concrete. Once it hardens, reshaping it becomes an enormous effort. This leads to what I call the assignment trap. If you don't choose your path, someone else will sign it for you. For those of you who have ever read Paul Millard's The Pathless Path, he often refers to this as the default path. The worst part about this is that your assignments to you won't be based on your strengths or your career aspirations. They'll actually be based on whatever needs to get done. And often, it's what other people just don't want to go handle. But now, this is an opportunity for you to go do something about it. I've seen countless talented people get pigeonholed into roles they hated simply because they didn't establish upfront their value early on in their career or in a new position. Like a creative marketing specialist who gets stuck doing spreadsheets for 3 years because she was good with Excel and didn't speak up during her first couple weeks. Or imagine somebody who might be a strategic thinker who becomes the team's default note taker just because they were organized and didn't propose alternate ways to contribute. Some of the most successful people I know and have worked with take a completely different approach. And that's what I want to talk about today. Instead of waiting for direction, they come in with a plan to understand the organization's needs and position themselves as problem solvers day one. When you wait for instructions, you're unwittingly creating a permanent impression of yourself as someone who executes rather than someone who leads. You signal that you need to be managed closely rather than being trusted with autonomy. And perhaps some of the most damaging part is you're letting others define you and define your value based on their immediate needs rather than their full potential. Think about it this way. If someone's first experience of you is taking orders and completing an assigned task, that becomes your brand. 6 months later, when an exciting new strategic project comes up, you won't even be considered. Why? Because you've been mentally filed under good at following directions rather than brings innovative solutions. And by the way, if you're not sure what your brand is, I'll put a link in the description to a video I recorded a little while back to help you better understand who you are, what your identity is, what your brand identity is at work, in life, how to understand it, and also how to reshape a broken brand. Because this becomes really important as you move forward, especially past those first 30 crucial first 30 days. All right, so let's talk about those days. You're in. the first 30 days. Some jobs like the president have, they look at the first 100 days, but let's talk about the first 30 days for you. Your coworkers are expecting you to spend weeks getting oriented, but what they don't expect is for you to uncover the team's biggest pain points before your email signature is even set up. The most successful professionals I've ever mentored all follow the same counterintuitive 30-day pattern that virtually guarantees they're seen as indispensable from the start. I call this the first 30-day blueprint, and it's completely different from what I've seen most people do. Instead of, again, passively absorbing information, waiting for assignments, you're going to strategically position yourself as someone who solves problems. Fair warning, this approach feels uncomfortable at first, but that's good. Usually things that feel uncomfortable mean that they're different than what most people are doing and will set you apart. This is something that requires you to be proactive when your instinct is telling you to stay quiet and observe. But that discomfort is exactly why it works so well, because again, no one else is going to push through it like you're about to. So let's break this down week by week. It all starts with 4 weeks. Week number 1 is about understanding your hiring purpose. Your very first conversation with your manager is critical. It should clarify why you're brought on. Ask directly. Don't beat around the bush. Be very direct. Say, I want to make sure I understand exactly why I was hired and what success looks like for me in this role. From your perspective, what are 3 most important things I need to accomplish in the next 6 months? This conversation does 2 really critical things. First, it shows you're thinking strategically. And second, it prevents misalignment from what you think you should be doing and what your manager expects. Use this opportunity to say that you want to take some time working with the team and come back with information on progress you've made and recommendations on next steps. Give a firm deadline of when you'll be back. This conversation also gives time for you to be autonomous while doing what you do best. Instead of waiting for somebody to tell you what to go do, you take what you know are the right steps to take and have the autonomy to go execute them. Finally, and this is something I've learned from probably doing things the wrong way many times, but I would definitely recommend understanding your organizational structure. Understand who reports to who, what general roles different people support, and use this to schedule time with key players, not just in your organization, but also outside, tangent organizations that you might directly work with. Week number 2. Now that you know who everybody is, the listening tour begins. This is where you systematically meet with those team members to understand their challenges. Here's the key that most people miss. Don't just talk to your immediate team. Schedule about 15-minute conversations with people also in adjacent departments who interact with your team. When someone says to you, why do you want to meet? Who are you? You just say, hey, look, I'm new and I'm trying to understand how everything fits together so I can contribute more effectively. People love being asked for their perspective. Use this to your advantage. Ask questions to help understand what people are working on. Week number three is pattern recognition. After you start talking to people, you'll start to connect dots from those conversations. What themes have emerged? Where do the same problems keep showing up? What issues seem to cause the most frustration? The magic happens when you start to spot patterns that others have missed because they're too close to the situation. Take these thoughts, start organizing them in those insights into categories: process issues, communication breakdowns, and resource gaps. Finally, week number 4. It's all about the presentation, baby. Now you'll create a simple 1-page outline where you're going to outline what you've learned, patterns you've noticed, and I would say 2 or 3 potential solutions for how you could help implement some problem-solving skills and ability to fix things going forward. Take some time, schedule about 30 minutes with your manager, and present it. Just do it conversationally. Say, you've taken the time as you promised, and make sure this has to connect back to the promise that you made earlier on. The whole point here is to close that loop and say, I want to share some observations from my first few weeks and get your thoughts on a few ideas. The key to making this entire approach work is how you conduct your conversations. Instead of interrogating people, here are 3 simple questions that yield incredible insights. First, hey, can you help me understand what's working well that we should keep doing? This starts things positive and again gets people talking about themselves. Second, what could we improve about how we work? And finally, now this is the golden question. If you could fix just one thing, any one thing, if you were king for a day, what would you fix? What would it be? That last question consistently reveals, honestly, the most valuable insights. You've taken some time to break down the barriers so you can have a good conversation and understand the right needs of your team and those around you, and you really get what you need out of that last question. And again, these questions, they're not just theoretical. This is the exact same questions Satya Nadella used when Microsoft was floundering back in 2014. The company had just spent $7.2 billion acquiring Nokia's mobile division in what would later be called one of the worst tech acquisitions in history. Windows 8, rejected. Microsoft had missed multiple technical waves, including mobile, search, social media. Not doing too good. So when Nadella took over as CEO, people expected him to have dramatic changes, restructuring, massive layoffs. But instead, he did something that shocked both Wall Street and insiders. He launched what again was called the listening tour, like we just talked about. Rather than implementing immediate changes, Nadella spent the first months meeting teams across the organization and asking variations of those exact 3 questions. So these are things that are not just practice the theoretical. These actually help transform Microsoft's culture and ability to work going forward. And what's fascinating here is what happened next. Based on the conversation, Nadella identified that Microsoft's culture had become toxic and competitive. Teams were fighting against each other instead of competitors. He discovered that while Microsoft had amazing cloud technology, internal politics really prevented them from becoming a priority. Most importantly, he realized that employees felt demoralized by the company's know-it-all approach. Instead of dictating a new direction, Nadella presented his findings back to the leadership team. Sound familiar? This is exactly what we just talked about. So along with the new vision, he developed a transforming Microsoft from a know-it-all company to a learn-it-all organization. This cultural shift made massive changes throughout the company and really drove as part of the reason why Microsoft now has a $1 trillion valuation today. But this approach isn't just for CEOs. These are things that I've actually done myself. When I started one of my previous roles, I scheduled times with all the key players, at least the ones I knew at the time, and I learned what they were doing and where they're having issues. After about a week or so of picking everybody's brains, my notes really started to point to 2 things. 1, primary teams were disconnected. The focus of the technical teams didn't align with the strategic vision, and this was causing a lot of frustration and kind of an unhealthy work environment. 2nd, no one was getting insight into what the technical team was doing. One thing I've learned over the years is that if you're doing something that you believe is good, you have to go and let the whole world know about it. Go and shout it from the mountaintops. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that and sharing that information, then either you need some help to reshape and make sure you're going in the right direction, or frankly, maybe it's not worth doing. Maybe you're spending time and money on something that's not really that useful, and you need to make the decision to cut bait and run. But look, bottom line is I've seen talented individuals with impressive credentials remain in the same positions year after year because they never took these steps and never moved beyond their assigned tasks. Do you know why passive employees end up with the worst assignments? The answer is both simple and profound. When managers need someone to handle a routine, unglamorous work, they look for reliable executors. People they know will follow instructions without pushback. Once you've established yourself as that person, you become the safe choice for necessary but advancement-limiting tasks. Meanwhile, the problems that led to visibility, recognition, and promotion go to those who have demonstrated the problem-solving initiative. This is exactly what I discussed in my video a little while back on learning to be replaceable. Being reliable is a great trait, but it can hold you back from moving on to something bigger and better. I'll put a link for that one down in the description too. But again, you have to be irreplaceable, but also be replaceable. So let's wrap this up. Here's the truth about your career. It isn't built on your resume or credentials. It's shaped in those pivotal moments when you decide to be more than just another employee. The difference between career stagnation and rapid advancement often comes down to one single choice. Will you passively accept the path laid before you, or actively design your own journey? Starting tomorrow, I want to challenge you to approach your work differently. Whether you're brand new or have been there for years, it's never too late to reposition yourself. Stop waiting for permission to make an impact. Start asking questions about the business that nobody else is asking. Identify problems that nobody else sees. And remember this, your career is too important to leave in the hands of somebody else. The path you don't choose for yourself will be chosen for you, and rarely in your favor. So take control now. Thank you guys again for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts below. Have you found yourself becoming stagnant because you're not taking these steps? Put that down in the comment section below. I'd love to talk to you guys some more about it. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll talk to you all again real soon. Thanks for joining me on this journey, guys. Later.